Everybody, Vince August here. It is Monday, June 8th, and I had promised everyone that I was going to do a new impersonation video of Governor Phil Murphy today. In fact, I had a couple of jokes lined up on how data determines dates, do the face thing that he does, the twitch, and then even show some of the data, how his name, Philip Dunton Murphy, if you look at the data, each one of those has 6 letters in it, 666, and how it's the number of the beast. And I was going to do another joke about the First Amendment and how he is in support of certain protests and not other protests. So the First Amendment to him means first check in with him and he'll tell you if you have a right to that amendment. But then I saw what happened over the weekend and how Governor Murphy, who has not only been touting the Black Lives Matter movement, which is great, but he also attended a couple of the protests, which kind of violates his order, but you know, you give him a break on that. But it wasn't even that. It was when I saw a tweet that he wrote that said, and I quote, "We march because we will not accept systemic racism and bias as just a part of our national condition. Black Lives Matter." And I said, you know what? I said, I think I know the history of Phil Murphy, but I know I got to go back and take a look. I want to make sure that I'm right about this. And then so what I did was I went to news.efinancialcareers.com and I got the demographics of Goldman Sachs, the company he worked for from I think 1982, 83 to like 2006. 25 years he spent at this company. And their current demographics, their seniority demographics, executive seniors or official managers, 78% white, 3% black or African American. Then just the seniority amongst officials and managers, it's 60% white, 5% black or African American. And you guys can certainly look this up to see at news.efinancialcareers.com, you know, what the makeup is of this company that he was a part of for 23 years. In fact, you know, when you look at, you know, Governor Murphy's history and just how he feels about people and you know, when we talk about being part of a society, let's see, from 1997 to 1999, Murphy served as the president of Goldman Sachs Asia. In that capacity, he was officed in Hong Kong, okay? During this time, Goldman Sachs profited from its investments in Yen Industry Holdings, Y-U-E-N Industry Holdings, a shoe manufacturer that became notorious for its harsh labor practices. Interesting. The $55 million investment was made the year before Murphy took the Asia post. And it's unclear as to the extent of what, you know, Murphy knew about the characteristics, but it was made before he got there. So by the time he got there, he would have at least known that. You know, and then I started thinking about Murphy and how he has been conducting these weekly, you know, daily talk shows he does here in the state of New Jersey, and how he deals with, you know, just this health crisis, because we're in a health crisis right now as well. And when he's asked questions that he doesn't like, he simply doesn't answer them. Like he was asked a question about an anonymous letter written, and his spokesperson said plain out, we don't answer questions about anonymous sources. Okay, so that would be tantamount to a whistleblower saying, if it's a whistleblower and they stay anonymous, we don't answer that question. We know how we feel about whistleblowers in America now. In fact, he hasn't answered the question about the assistant commissioner in the Department of Health. You know, the assistant to the woman that needs no introduction that we get every day. Her assistant, Christopher Neuwirth, was fired. I want you to Google Christopher, C-H-R-I-S-T-O-P-H-E-R, Neuwirth, N-E-U-W-I-R-T-H, fired, Department of Health in New Jersey, and see how many articles come up on it. Absolutely none. You're lucky if you find anything on it, because Governor Murphy won't answer questions about it, because we don't answer, you know, questions about things. And in fact, when he's asked about the policies behind even the lockdown, what he tells you is, with regards to how they come up with these, you know, these executive orders, specifically his quote is, Laws are like sausages. It's better not to see them being made. Now, that's an interesting quote, considering the fact it comes from historical context. Otto von Bismarck, who it was responsible for creating the first welfare system in the world in the 19th century in Prussia, known for starting wars and creating the first welfare system. So when you're going to quote somebody, you want to quote, someone who's dictatorish qualities. In fact, it's interesting because when Governor Murphy was asked about Goldman Sachs in 1998, he told the Wall Street Journal, "We at Goldman Sachs are elite in the sense that the Marine Corps is elite." So he compared his financial giant of a company that profits off of people and, especially in places like China, off of slave labor, to the Marine Corps, which is an elite band of soldiers that goes around the war trying to spread freedom. That's an interesting comparison. But what's even more interesting about all of this is every day when Governor Murphy has his press conferences for a health care and a health emergency, the people on his panel every day, or the woman that needs no introduction, who reads off the same statistics he reads to us, the other person is the head of the state police. I want you to think about that. We are in a health emergency, but it's necessary for him to have the head of the New Jersey State Police sit there and go over compliance data. So the numbers that matter most to him are, here's the justification for what I'm doing, and here's the guy who enforces it. This is the guy who talks about Black Lives Matter. A guy who's so far invoked a quote from Otto von Bismarck, compared Goldman Sachs to the Marine Corps. And if you're saying, okay, Vin, what is all this talking about? So he worked for a company that has elite white people. Well, then there's also where he moved, Middletown, New Jersey, which you can feel free to Google that, is 94% white. But Black Lives Matter to Governor Murphy. And you're saying, okay, you're just bringing up crazy stuff. Well, you're right. This is all crazy stuff. So let me bring up this, which the governor has yet to answer to. Okay. A family demands answers after an unarmed black man killed by New Jersey troopers. Really? And when did this happen, Vin? What, are you going to pull a story out of your ass from a long time ago? Yeah, well, on May 23rd, 2020, today's June 8th, a couple weeks ago, a routine traffic stop ended with a New Jersey state trooper shooting a black man to death on the side of the Garden State Parkway. Maurice Gordon, 28 years old. I'll paraphrase the story. He was stopped for speeding. When he went to turn the car back on, after he turned it off, he couldn't turn it back on. The car died. He and the state trooper called for a tow truck. Maurice Gordon was put in the back of the police cruiser because he didn't want to wait in his car, apparently. And then he tried to leave the back of the police cruiser, but for some apparent reason, even though he was only pulled over for speeding, he was shot to death. We still don't have answers about this because whenever he asks Colonel Pat Callahan, it's an ongoing investigation. In fact, the attorney for the family is trying to get answers, but answers have been hard to come by. The family's attorney has been able to learn only the basic details of what happened and said the Attorney General's office, which investigates police shootings, only let them see a portion of the video footage. Here's a quote from the state police. Once the initial investigation is substantially complete, typically within 20 days, we'll let you know. 20 days. They have not released the name of the state trooper involved in the shooting. Now, what happened in Minneapolis was awful. We know it was awful. There's no question about it, it was awful. We knew those officers' names immediately. They took action 5 days later, which many people deemed to be slow, and I agree it was. Here in the state of New Jersey, this happened on May 23rd. It's June 8th. This family doesn't even know the name of the officer. Their attorney hasn't been given the video. The New Jersey State Police declined to comment on the story. The family doesn't know if Mr. Gordon died at the scene or was given first aid or taken to the hospital. That's right. They're not giving the family any answers with regards to this. None. And the story's available, if you want to read the story, at nj.com. There's the story. So, our governor, who for the last week has told us about how Black Lives Matter. Which ones, Governor? Which ones? Just George Floyd? Maurice Gordon? Does his life matter? You won't even tell us the name of the trooper involved in the shooting. We don't know if that trooper's been suspended. We don't know if they've been fired. You won't even give the video to the attorney for the family. Forget about the press. You won't take questions with regards to it because it's an ongoing investigation. But you have the nerve, the audacity, the gall to march with people and say Black Lives Matter, how this is systemic. You are what is systemic. Your entire history of employment is what is systemic. And you sit up there with the head of the Department of Health and make sure that she stays in line because when her assistant wasn't in line, well, he got fired, but we don't know why because you won't answer that. And he tells about compliance every day, how everyone needs to comply with your orders and how you're the end-all be-all. In a state of 6 million registered voters, in an election that you won 1.2 million of those votes, 20% of the state of New Jersey elected you governor. But you're going to sit up there and not answer questions, deflect questions, and go along with marches and protests as if you're above the law. As in fact, you are the law right now because you refuse to give up your executive privilege. So you can tell us data. You can tell us how that data is going to be enforced. But when someone asks you a tough question, there's no follow-ups if you notice at his press conferences. You get to rattle off questions, and if he doesn't like your question, he simply doesn't answer it. So, today I wasn't in the mood to make jokes about Governor Murphy because this is the truth about Governor Murphy. This right here. 20% of the state voted for you as governor. And now you're going to hide from it. I wonder if 20% was enough at Goldman Sachs to even get a quorum for a vote. That's who you represent in the state of New Jersey in terms of who voted for you. But there's still 9 million of us in this state that would like these answers. So Governor Murphy, if Black lives do matter, you think maybe now, since it's been over 2 weeks, you could let us know the name of the trooper that killed Maurice Gordon? You think maybe you can tell us something about that investigation? When are you going to release that video? We've seen the other video in Minneapolis, which is horrific. This one must be pretty bad if you won't show us this. Now, I don't know if this video will go viral. I don't know if the people that just know me will see this. But you know what? I couldn't sit by and watch the type of hypocrisy that our leaders are going to perpetrate upon us and think that because you can march in a protest, because you can sit at a podium every day and tell us Black Lives Matter, that you can hide behind the veil of who you really are.